All right, today we're going to break down James Clear's incredible book, Atomic Habits. And really, this is so much more than just a book about habits. It's a whole blueprint for redesigning your life, and it's all built on one simple but super powerful idea, that tiny, almost invisible changes can lead to absolutely remarkable results.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You start the year with all this motivation. You're going to go to the gym, learn a new language, maybe start that side hustle. But then, a few weeks later, poof, you're right back where you started. It's such a common and honestly frustrating cycle.
And this gets right to the heart of the book. James Clear says we're always blaming ourselves, thinking we just don't have enough willpower. But the real problem? It's our system. He has this amazing line: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
So, okay, how do you build a better system? Well, it all starts with this idea that sounds almost too simple: the aggregation of marginal gains. You can forget about making huge, massive changes. Instead, just think about 1%.
A perfect example of this is the British cycling team. For almost a century, they were just mediocre. It got so bad that one of the top bike manufacturers actually refused to sell them bikes because they were afraid it would hurt their brand. But then, they brought in a new performance director who had this wild new philosophy: improve everything by just a tiny, tiny margin.
Just 1%. That was it. That was the goal. And it seems like nothing, right? But the really fascinating part is how all those tiny little gains start to stack up, how they compound over time and lead to something extraordinary.
And they looked everywhere for that 1%. We're talking massage gels, finding the perfect pillow for each rider to get the best sleep. They even hired a surgeon to teach the team how to wash their hands properly to avoid getting sick. Nothing was too small. And the result? They completely dominated the sport for a solid decade.
So this leads us to what is probably the book's most central message, a really critical shift in how we think. See, we're all obsessed with setting goals, but Clear says that's exactly where we go wrong. It kind of breaks down like this. A goal is the result you want to get. A system is the process that leads you to that result. So a coach's goal might be to win the championship, but their system is what the team actually does at practice every single day. Goals are great for pointing you in the right direction, but it's the systems that get you there.
And here's the kicker. Every single athlete in the Olympics wants to win a gold medal. Every person applying for a job wants to get it. So having the goal isn't what separates the winners from the losers. What makes the real difference is having a system of continuous, tiny improvements that eventually leads to success.
Okay, so we get it. We need to focus on systems, and those systems should be built from tiny habits. But how? How do we actually do that? Well, this is where Clear gives us a super practical and easy-to-remember framework: the 4 laws of behavior change.
These 4 laws are basically your toolkit for building any good habit you want. And if you want to break a bad one, you just flip them upside down. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. So let's quickly walk through how to build the good ones. The first law is all about the cues around you. We like to think we're in total control, but a lot of the time our environment is shaping our actions without us even realizing it. The people who seem to have incredible self-control, they're not superheroes. They're just really good at designing an environment where they don't need it. A pretty shocking study from the Vietnam War proves this perfectly. Almost 20% of US soldiers there became addicted to heroin. But here's the wild part. When they came back home, away from all the environmental cues of the war, 90% of them kicked the addiction almost overnight. Now compare that to a typical user who comes home from rehab to the exact same environment. Their relapse rate is 90%. If you change your environment, you can change your habits. Okay, law number 2 taps into our deep human need to belong. Seriously, one of the most powerful things you can do is join a culture where the behavior you want is already the normal behavior. If you want to get fit, surround yourself with fit people. Pretty soon, their habits will start to look attractive and totally normal to you, too.
All right, let's move on to law 3. We humans are just wired to save energy. That means we will almost always drift towards the path of least resistance. So, to build a good habit, you have to make it as ridiculously easy as possible to start. Lay out your gym clothes the night before. Put your guitar right in the middle of your living room.
I love this real-life example. There was a young stockbroker named Trent Dursmid who started every day with 2 jars on his desk. One had 120 paper clips in it. After every single sales call, he'd move one clip over to the other jar, and he wouldn't stop until that first jar was totally empty. He made the next action easy and his progress something he could literally see.
And that brings us to the last law. Our brains evolved to want rewards right now.
not later. Think about it. The consequences of bad habits, like smoking, are way down the road, but the pleasure is immediate. For good habits, it's usually the other way around. So the trick is to find a way to give yourself an immediate reward for doing the right thing.
Here is just a brilliant way to apply this. A couple was trying to save money, so they opened a savings account and named it Trip to Europe. Every time they resisted the temptation to eat out and cooked a meal at home instead, they immediately transferred $50 into that account. It made the act of saving money immediately satisfying, which just locked in the habit.
So we've got the 4 laws, right? That's our practical toolkit for change. But this whole framework, it's actually serving a much deeper purpose. It's not just about the things you do. It's about the person you become.
And this, honestly, might be the most profound lesson in the entire book. True, lasting behavior change is identity change. The most powerful way to make your habit stick is to change your beliefs about who you are. Every action you take is like a vote for the type of person you want to become.
This quote just nails it. Once your pride gets involved, once you start to really see yourself as a person who works out or a person who writes every day, you will fight tooth and nail to keep those habits because they're not just actions anymore. They're part of who you are.
So, how can this book change your life? Well, it gives you a clear, step-by-step plan to stop fighting against yourself and start building systems that actually work with your human nature. And it all comes back to that first step, starting small. Forget about motivation, forget about willpower just for a second. Just master the art of showing up. A new habit shouldn't feel like some big challenge. The real goal is to create a 2-minute version of it. You want to read more? Read 1 page. You want to run a marathon? Just put on your running shoes. Standardize before you optimize. And that really leaves us with this final thought. You don't need to completely overhaul your life by tomorrow. Just focus on getting 1% better. So what is one tiny atomic habit you can start today that will cast a vote for the person you want to become?